People often ask me how I turn dull raw files into beautiful photos like these by just moving a few sliders in Lightroom. Well, the thing is, I've been editing photos like this for almost 11 years now, and I've been teaching it online to thousands of photographers for a long time as well. And today, my friend, I'm going to show you my complete editing workflow from start to finish. All the little secrets that I do, I'm not holding anything back. Let's jump into Lightroom. Alright, my friend, so this is the photo that we are gonna work with today, and it's already edited, but we can just reset it and edit it from the ground up. So what I like to do first when I edit my photos is that I always start by putting the crop. The reason I do this is because by doing the crop early and nailing the composition, then I know where I'm gonna put my mask later on. So I like to do this first. Now, click the crop up here, and we can do 4:3, something like this. It is a bit crooked, so we click auto and it's gonna straighten out ever so slightly. I think somewhere here is probably good enough for the sake of this tutorial. If you don't know how I'm getting different lines here, just press O on your keyboard and you get all these different lines that help you with the composition. This is pretty damn good. Now what I usually do now is that I go here to the side and I find one of my presets. I have a lot of them, and I think like summer color pop. This is pretty good starting point, and then I would edit from here. But my friend, I'm going to show this from the ground up. And if you're interested in grabbing some of my preset packs and get consistent tones across your images and speeding up your workflow tremendously, then you can find that in the description down below. But my friend, we're going to edit this from the ground up. So what I like to do now, I start with the basic correction. Sometimes I just, start by moving things around a little bit, seeing how this works. I'm often looking at the histogram as well. And sometimes I just like to click auto to begin with, let Lightroom do what it thinks is the correct exposure here, and then I go from here. I think it doesn't really matter. I just take it a little bit like this. It's all about the feeling, you know. You have to feel good and be in a good place when you edit your photos. This is pretty decent. I mean, it's pretty nice starting point. After that, we can do an S-curve, and let's just, for the sake of this tutorial, do a simple little S-curve, something like this. You can even do like a slide fade here. Often like that when the blacks are not like totally true blacks. But I think this is a pretty decent starting point. So far, we've put the crop, we've made some basic corrections, and as you can see with editing, it's a lot about going back and forth and really just using your eyes to see what you think looks good and trusting your guts and your instinct. And of course, the more you learn about color theory and you learn about photography in general, this process is gonna be a lot better and easier. But in the essence of it, what looks good to you, you know, this is art, and art is really subjective, you know. But here we can take down the clarity ever so slightly. So, done the basic correction, the crop, and a bit of the tone curves. Now this next part, what I usually do is that I either go for the color mixer and start to playing around with the colors, getting the colors right, the hue, saturation, and luminance, and then also the calibration down here. But sometimes I do the masking first. It kind of all depends on the image and the mood I'm in. Doing the mask first, then I'm setting the light, isolating the subject early on, and to really know where that is, and then I work with the colors after. Now, for the sake of this tutorial, let's start with the colors, and then we move into masking. But before I do that, this thing right here is bugging me a lot. I usually don't remove things until afterwards. That is one of my last steps. But this is just bugs me. So let's click the spotted removal tool here, use the generative AI, and we can just paint it like this and get rid of this. All right, this looks a lot better, a lot cleaner. So for the color grading here, then we can start with let's actually start with the calibration. So for this photo, I want to do -30, +20, and then +7 here. Now this changed it a ton, and I'm not gonna have it like this actually. Let's just take up the greens to 35 and actually down to 25. I think this is pretty nice. Now the calibration tool, it just changes how Lightroom interprets the underlying base tones and the base colors, and it shifts them. I think this is a really nice thing to do before you start to do the HSL, and I like this a lot. This is a pretty nice starting point, and from here we are gonna work a little bit with the tones. Now I know that I think that the yellow became a little bit too yellow. This was shot in the summer, so we can take that up ever so slightly. We take down the orange a little bit like this, down with the blue. And you know what? This is actually pretty tedious. It's a lot of back and forth and using your eyes. But let's speed this up, and I'll talk to you later about what the decisions here. All right, here we are, and this is the changes. This is with no HSL, and this is with HSL on. Pretty decent starting point here, and I will probably I'll do more changes after this. Now, one thing that I want to focus on or bring attention to is the luminance slider. If you've been following some photographers and you see their colors and think like, wow, how are they making these colors pop so much? Now, it's a combination of a lot of things, of course, when you shot it and the light and your masking techniques and all that. But luminance is also where you're able to get a lot of so-called oomph into your colors and get these super punchy colors. For example, by desaturating the blues, you get this pretty nice colors that I don't like too much blue in my photos usually, but by then bringing down the blues in the luminance, I'm I'm deepening the colors, and you can see it. I think this is a really nice combination. And then often I like to take up the yellows so you can make them a bit brighter. We're increasing the brightness and the luma of the yellows. And on the opposite, I like to take, instead of taking up the greens as well, so everything becomes bright, then the green and yellows sit really close to each other, and I like to take them down. So the greens become a little bit kind of richer, kind of fuller, and just, it's a really nice combination. So this, pay attention a little bit to luminance and play with that, then you will get super nice colors. Now next, let us actually take the colors up a little bit more. Here, overall colors, I think this is pretty nice. Down, orange became a little bit too much orange. Now here, it's starting to look pretty decent, not bad. Now we're gonna go do the color grading after the HSL, and then the colors, they are pretty much, they're pretty good. And by the way, I made a free 33-day email series. It's one short tip a day that will help you become a better photo editor. It's totally free, and you can find it in the description down below. Okay, so color grading, we have the shadows, we have the midtones, and we have the highlights. So what we are gonna do is that either we are gonna cool the shadows a little bit, or we are gonna warm them up. I often feel that if I want to have this little bit nostalgic feeling, this little bit warmer retro tones, then warming the shadows is really good. But for this one, I think having the shadows a little bit colder, also because we did remove a lot of the blue colors here in the saturation, and I think we can add a little bit of them. I think this is actually pretty decent, something like this. And the thing is, the better you get at understanding color theory, the better you will be at color grading, because really what you're doing, you're just pushing in colors in the shadows, midtones, and highlights. And if you master the color grading, that's really how you're able to create your specific style and look and get really creative with it. Now here, I think actually I am gonna cool this down just tiny bit, probably less, around 5. And then with the highlights, I'm gonna warm them up ever so slightly. Yeah, I'm actually gonna warm them up, the highlights, to 41, and then just tiny bit, something like this. Now this, my friend, is starting to look pretty decent, not bad at all. And the next step now is by far one of the most important steps when it comes to editing photos. And this, my friend, you should not sleep on. And that is to smack the like button. That is the masks, okay? So here, this is the photo edited. And you can see that we haven't quite gotten this depth to it. This right here, it's fine. The colors they're pretty decent. But comparing these two, this one has so much more depth to it. And why is that? Well, it's because I've made a few masks here. Now, in this photo, the masks are pretty simple. So you can see I have just, 5 masks, and this is with them out, and this is with them on. And you can just see how incredible, like, the difference this makes. Now, sometimes I have photos where I use a ton of masks, and my aim with the mask is really to add depth to the photo, to take control of the light, to shape it. I want to shape the photo like I'm, Shakespeare not Shakespeare, like Leonardo, like I'm some old dead painter who's doing some masterpieces. And you can see here that this is without and this is with. And you can see how this photo is just flat. Here, so much depth to it, so much depth. This is so beautiful. And this, top boring and this, wow, you show your crush this and she's going to give you your number, you know. So this, that's probably wishful thinking. But this here is what we're aiming for, and this is what we have right now. Now, I already think that the colors here are a little bit better, but again, when you're editing photos, it is a lot of back and forth. And now I'm just making a tutorial and doing this on top of my dome, but I do spend quite a lot of time. So here I would probably make the oranges a little bit redder. I think that was a pretty cool look. And then maybe even dragging up the white brands and whatnot. But we are going to do some masks. So first thing first, we can make a radial gradient with rolling R's. And if you say the rolling R's, you get a little bit of extra points in my books. And we're going to make it in the middle. Now, what is the subject of this photo? I would say that the subject is not one clear subject, like you can sometimes see in my photos, like here, clear subject, clear subject, clear subject, really clear subject. This is more, I'm showcasing or I'm showing the valley here, okay? And what I want them to do is to draw attention to it, to this little bay here. Bay is a better word, actually. So I'm going to do one radial filter like this, and I'm just going to drag up the shadows and drag up the whites a little bit. Now, when you're dragging up the whites, it's really easy to blow the small white part up. So take a look at the histogram. When you start to see that this little triangle fires up, that's telling you that you've blown up your whites. You've gone too far. They're too white. So you just take a look, how far can I go up with before they start to blow up, and then also the exposure a little bit. This, pretty nice. Now feather, we can actually feather it. It does not have to be this extremely feathered. We can have it something like this. I think this is pretty decent. Now, what I'd like to do now also is to take up the contrast just a little bit, just to get a little bit oomph back into everything here. This, pretty damn nice. Now, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take a linear gradient and I'm going to darkening the foreground. And this helps a ton with that 3D look. And we can take this down a little bit. This was maybe a little bit too much, so I can zoom in. What is a good zoom in here? Is it maybe 33? Yeah, 33, not bad. Something like this. And now we can do fit again, and we can take down. And often when I'm darkening the corner, the edges, or the foreground, or maybe the sky as well, it's often a combination of exposure and then contrast slider here. This is also really, really nice. So we're darkening. And the next part is that we are going to shape the light. So the light is coming from this direction right here. The sun was here somewhere, and you can see how it hits from this side. You can see the buildings there. The shadows are on this side. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to emphasize on the light source. I call this little technique side light, for a lack of more creative word, really. But it's looking like this. You just create a circle. I'm dragging it up here. You can see the circle. And then if I press H, you can see it. So here we can constantly see the circle. And then all I'm doing is that I'm taking down the clarity and we're taking down the dehaze. You see? So if I'm showing you what it actually looks like by exaggerating it, you can see that this is the light source. And I'm placing it in the same corner as the light is coming from. And you can also play around with the color temperature as well. If you want to make this warmer, you want to emulate the sunlight, then you can play around with the temperature here too. Take it up to the yellow or the orange, and you're going to get this light source. Sorry, everything is lagging a little bit right now. But we take this down just like this. We don't even have to have it warm. And we're just going to do this ever so slightly. Something like this. And then I actually going to take another one, and this I'm going to cone it, create a source. And basically what I'm doing now, I'm combining two different masks that are kind of doing the same, but I'm stacking them on top of each other to just get greater control. I call this mask stacking. And it's really, really simple concept. So here, this mask is doing what I just showed you, this one right here. And then this one is doing very similar, but I am beaming now the light into the valley or the bay. So it looks like this now. You can see Here it is, and I'm beaming it down just like so. And you can see me do it a lot. All right, sorry about that. My battery ran out, and now also you can see the light is a little bit different. The sun came out. I was using just natural light. I think it's pretty nice, but then the sun came out, and it's beaming on my neighbor's house, and it looked, I was too blown out and too bright. So I rigged up a little lighting setup here. And yeah, let's go on with the butter, like we say in Iceland. On with this. So now next thing I want to do is a brush tool. And here, instead of having the fit, what I like to do with the brush tool is to take the photo, zoom it out a little bit so I can see all of the edges. And now I am going to take the clarity away here. I'm just going to brush the edges, and we can press O so you can see what I'm doing. Just like this, and up here a tiny bit, and here just tiny bit. And then I am essentially doing this effect. Now this is obviously with too much, but I'm just closing in a little bit, darkening the corners and the bottom there ever so slightly. And boom, I would say that this is pretty much it. Now here you can see my final edit, and keen eyes will spot that there is a few differences here. What is it doing? Did you see? For starters, the colors here are a little bit nicer. I worked on them a little bit more. It has more contrast to it. So what I would like to do here, that this lacks a ton of contrast. So I would actually take up the contrast. I would probably go in the tone curve, and we would play around with the tone curve like this, something like this. But do you still see that there is something? Now, of course, the crop, this is a 4:5 crop, and here is the 3:4. But look, I'm removing these buildings here. You see? I just didn't think all the buildings here, I didn't think that looked nice. So what I did, I just removed them. And the way that you do that, you just click the removal tool. You can have generate AI on here, but this is really not needed. And then you can just click here, 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 and everything else that you think is distraction. I think this little boat here is a little bit distracting. I think I removed even this little pillar, and basically you can just zoom in and think about everything you don't think looks nice. Like, are these houses doing anything? And just remove. I call it clean up the photo. I think I cleaned up these poles here. I even think I did a lot of work on these as well. And this I did before generative AI was even a thing. So this was all done manually, so to speak. But then you just click remove. Now, before you hit the export, then there are actually a few things that I think are essential for us to do if we want to take our photo editing to the next level and truly create something that we're really, really proud of. And if you like this way of thinking about photo editing, then I encourage you to check out my entire Lightroom masterclass. It's basically everything that I learned over the last 11 years of editing photos packed into one simple, easy to follow along step-by-step course. My aim with it is not only to show you how to move the sliders, but also the why and the reason behind why you do certain things. At the time of the recording, over 700 photographers have gone through it. The feedback I've gotten is absolutely wild. There is an entire module on just the color theory for photographers, and it's by far the best editing product that I'm able to bring you guys. If you're interested, then you can find more information in the description down below. All right, so the last few things that I like to do, and these are really, really important, and that is, do I want to denoise the photo? This you can do in any order that you want. This one, I'm pretty happy. I shot it in ISO 100, no need to denoise. And then we go lens correction. This I usually often do before everything. I just forgot it here. But sometimes I do like the distortions the lenses, make. So I don't always use the lens correction. But in this case, it's pretty decent. Then I go through the colors again. I think we can boost, not the green, so it's not really good. We can take this down ever so slightly. This is pretty nice. We can take the vignette. We can add a tiny bit of vignette. Take in highlights, I think is all pretty good, feathering it, and then the grain. And now what I like to do is that I like to go through everything again and just see, okay, what can we do to make it a little bit better? I like to take up the contrast. I think the greens are a little bit too green, so I'm going to desaturate the greens a bit, just like so. I think we can take down the blue here ever so slightly, take down the greens. Yeah, I think this is pretty nice. This is pretty damn sick. What I would do here, I think also we can take down this exposure a little bit more and this exposure a little bit more as well. And then the most important part when it comes to editing photos is to stand up from your computer, because it's so easy to get blinded by all the decision we're making, and you don't see that sometimes you do something that absolutely sucks. So for example, on this edit, you can see that there are some differences. I removed this pole here, and the colors are overall just a little bit nicer, not as here, a little bit too vibrant still, and there are some extra things that I want to do, but I might not have seen that if I didn't stand up. So by standing up and coming again to the computer, it can really just be 5 minutes, you take a glass of water, or the next day, but it brings you fresh pair of eyes. And then you can go like, okay, the blue, they're a little bit too turquoise, let's take them up here, and the aqua, we can actually take that up as well a little bit. Now the thing is, understanding what your edits are doing, that's step one. But knowing why something works, it's really just half of the equation. The other half, my friend, is knowing what to do with it. And in Lightroom, there is this one technique that we dove a little bit into in this video right here that enables you to create that incredible 3D depth to your images. I'm talking the things that people see and go like, whoa, how did you do that? And if you want to learn how to do that, then take a look at this video here next.